Good day to you, my dear students. I'm Sean Xavier Alcalita, and we're going now to the next lesson, or the fourth lesson of our gender and society topic, which is the anatomy and physiology of reproduction, or basically the male and the female reproductive systems. Okay, for our course objective, when you finish reading this chapter, you should be able to differentiate the female and the male reproductive systems, understand the basis for physiologic processes in the females and male reproductive system. Okay, for the definition of terms, so reproduction is a process for producing an offspring. No? Genitals is considered to be an external sex organ, so both male and female. The primary sex characteristics would mean that these are the sex characteristics that are present at birth. But when you say secondary sex characteristics, these are the sex characteristics that emerge during puberty. Okay, so let's go over with the external genitalia of the female. So as you can see here, that in the drawing here, this is the female genitalia with the pelvic bone. So the pelvic bones are just like a round shape, so as to allow the baby to come out during at the final stage of her pregnancy. When she do actually, if she's going to have a labor and she's going to bear a child, the pelvic bones are shaped in a round so as to allow the baby to come out from the vagina. So here, these are the female external genitalia, or the parts. No, the vulva is all the external genital structures taken together. The mons veneris is the pads of fatty tissue between the pubic bone and the skin. So that's located at the front, no? So the labia majora or labium majus is here in this drawing is the labium majus, no? It's the outer lips surrounding other structures. The prepuce is the clitoral hood, no? That covers the clitoris. It's the clitoral hood. And the clitoris is the glans, or the head, the shaft, and the crural root, no? So for females, that is considered to be a G-spot. Why is it a G-spot? Because that is one of the most sensitive part of the female sex organ. But when you say the labia minora, or otherwise known as the labium minus, no, just the inner lips surrounding the vestibule, where sweat and oil glands, extensive blood vessels, and nerve endings are located. Okay, so the next one is the vestibule. So it's the area surrounding the urethral opening and the vagina, so which is highly sensitive with extensive blood vessels and nerve endings. So you can see there in the drawing, no, the vestibule of vagina, that is what is being pointed out. So in the urethral openings, the end of tube connecting to the bladder used for urination. So that is where the urine comes out, no? The vaginal opening, also called the introitus, no? And lastly is the perineum. So that is the located in the right and the lower portion of the one is the perineal raphe. No, that is the area of the skin separating from the genitalia from the anus. No, so the distance is less in females than males. Okay, so going to the internal structure of the female reproductive system. Okay, so here is the vagina. So it's collapsible canal extending from vaginal opening back and upward to the body of the cervix and the uterus. So during arousal, it is engorged with blood, and this aids its expansion and triggers the release of lubricants from vaginal mucosa. The cervix is the small end of the uterus to which the vagina leads. It is the opening in cervix leading to the interior of the uterus. No? And here, so in the upper part is the uterus, the womb, the organ within the pelvic bone where the fetus is carried, and in all of the human organs, uterus is considered to be the most flexible organ in the body, no, because it can stretch even more than um, a rubber band, no, and even it can also stretch, even could carry an 8 children inside the womb during pregnancy. Okay, so fallopian tubes is an egg cells carries the egg cells from the ovaries to uterus. This is where the process of fertilization occurs. No, the ovaries. So this is one of the most important organ of the females. No, because the ovaries not only produces, or this where the egg cell produced, but it also produces the two important female hormones like the estrogen and the progesterone. So the hormone called estrogen influences female sex characteristics and initiates the menstrual cycle. That's the function of the estrogen, while the progesterone aids in regulation of the menstrual cycle. So that is, if you have any problems with your menstruation period, maybe you have the imbalance of the progesterone levels in your body. So that is why I advise you to consult an obstetrics or gynecologist to aid you or to give you a treatment on your um, hormonal imbalance of concerning about your menstrual period. That is for females, okay? And moreover, progesterone promotes the mature development of uterine lining to allow for zygote implantation. It also produces the ova or the egg cells and bring them to maturity. As many as 1 million immature ova are present at birth, with about 400,000 surviving to puberty. Of these, only about 400 to 450 are typically brought to maturity and released into fallopian tubes. Okay, so we're talking about the puberty. So the menstrual cycle marks the beginning of puberty in females. The first episode occurs between 11 to 15 years of age, referred to as the menarche or the menarche or the menarche. So the menstruation pertains to the sloughing of the uterine lining if the conception or if the fertilization has not occurred. It may last within 2 to 6 days, which follows a cycle ranging from 24 to 42 days. Regardless of the length of the cycle, menstruation begins about 14 days after the ovulation, plus or minus 1 or 2 days. The overall cycle is governed by the hypothalamus, so it is found at the center of your brain, no? Of our brain, as it monitors the hormone levels in the bloodstream. So here in the menstrual phase, okay, occurs if the ovum is not fertilized. So here in the 28 calendar period, so it's 1 to 5 days, that is the menstruation period, which is usually in 1 or 2 days, 3 or 4 or 5, actually It looks like it's spotting period na siya. And then, um, it occurs if the ovum is not fertilized and does not implant itself in the uterine lining. So the continued high levels of estrogen and progesterone causes the pituitary to stop releasing FSH, no, and LH, okay, hormones. So the estrogen progesterone levels decrease, causing the endometrium to be sloughed off and bleeding ensues. So that's why, no? It's a period. So in the safe period, so 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And from there comes the ovulation period. So by 12, 13, and even at the 14th of the day, that is not already safe, no? Safe period. So the proliferative phase occurs when the hypothalamus stimulates the pituitary gland to release FSH that stimulates the ovaries to produce estrogen and causes the egg cell or the ova to mature and the ovarian follicle. So in the endometrium is repaired, thickens, and becomes well vascularized in response to increasing levels of estrogen. So here, so this is now the proliferative phase. So in the right, no? And during the ovulation period, it's the period wherein your FSH and the LH becomes high. Okay. And moreover, with your estrogen levels becomes high. Okay, next. So in the secretory phase, so after the ovulation period comes the secretory phase. It occurs when the pituitary gland releases LH that causes the ovary to release a mature ovum and causes the remaining portion of the follicle to develop into the corpus luteum. So the corpus luteum then produces progesterone. So endometrial glands begin to secrete nutrients and lining becomes more vascular in response to increasing levels of progesterone. Okay, so here's the problems associated with the menstruation include the premenstrual syndrome, which is the PMS. The other one is the dysmenorrhea, so the painful menstruation caused by overproduction of the prostaglandin. So when you say the prostaglandins, it's also considered as the pain hormone that is within our bloodstream, no? Causing the uterine muscles to contract. So that's why you have the painful period. The other one is amenorrhea or disruption or the absence of menstruation. And all of these involve the fluctuation of hormone levels associated with the menstruation. At menopause, usually in menopausal age, it's around 40s. But to be sure, it's 44 to 45 or even up to 44 to 50 years old. So a woman stops menstruating. So the ova or the egg cells are no longer brought to maturity. So during these 3 to 4 years of this transition, women may experience hot flashes, night sweats, irritation behaviors, sleep disturbances, resulting in fatigue, no? Irritability, that's why. Short-term memory loss, difficult concentrating, even headaches, anxiety, depression, and difficulty of being sexually aroused. So that is, these are the signs, no, of the women who already have menopause. So female secondary sexual characteristics after puberty. So it's a widening of the hips and pelvis. So why is it's a widening of hips and pelvis? It's because the pelvic bone is trying to widen so as to allow the baby to accommodate the baby to give birth, no? But also results in the downward shift, no, in the center of gravity. And most of all is the enlargement of breasts, like this one. So at puberty, both the glandular and fatty tissues of breasts begin to develop considerably, no? The differences in the breast size between women are primarily due to the differences in the amount of fatty tissue. So it's also not uncommon for women's breasts to be slightly larger than the other. The glandular tissue of the breast responds to the sex hormones. That's also one of the key factors why it's a difference of the size, no, of the breasts. And the breasts are involved in the women's sexual arousal. So the glandular tissue produces milk towards the end of pregnancy and after the childbirth in response to the hormone levels. Okay, so here some more female characteristics. Actually, females are generally shorter than men by average, but not all of them. Some are being tall, some others being tall. It's because of their footwear. No? A greater proportion of body weight composed of fat than men. Okay, two X chromosomes, so XX chromosomes, reduces the expression of many sex-linked conditions, and moreover, and in the sex-linked conditions, it's basically lower mortality rate at every age and longer projected lifespan than men. Okay, so the next slide will be talking about the external genitals of male reproductive system. So here, so first is the prepuce, whereas it refers to the foreskin covering the head of the penis. So if you're the uncircumcised individual, so of course you have the prepuce, no? But if you're circumcised, the prepuce is being removed during the circumcision. Okay, so the penis is the glans, no? The head, the shaft, and the root. So the glans here is particularly sensitive to stimulation. Running the length of the penis is the urethra, surrounded by the spongy body and two cylindrical chambers known as cavernous bodies. During arousal, these become engorged with blood, resulting in erection. Okay, next is the corona. Okay, so the corona is the rim of glans where it arises from the shaft. No? So the next one is a frenulum. Okay, the thin strap of skin connecting the glans and shaft on the underside of the penis. Okay, the scrotum is the sac that encloses the two compartments housing the testes. The urethral opening found on the head of the penis, this is the end of tube connecting to the bladder used for urination. It is also the tube which internal structures deliver semen by which the male ejaculates. No? The perineum is the area of the skin separating the genitalia from the anus. So the distance is greater in males than females. So concerning about the internal structure, so the testes is they produce androgen. It's a hormone, no? Particularly large quantities of testosterone, which greatly influence the male development and drive sexual motivation. It also produces sperm cells, no? And in virtually unlimited quantity over the entire course of the lifespan. The vas deferens is the travels from the testicle toward the urethra carrying the sperm. So you seen there in the part, the vas deferens. Okay, so the seminal vesicles, the two glands that produce alkaline fluid rich in fructose sugar, comprising some of the 70% of the semen volume. So the alkaline nature may stimulate the sperm to start self-propulsion, and sugar may provide the sperm nutrients. So The ducts carry the fluid and connect with vas deferens, forming ejaculatory ducts. So, the ejaculatory ducts connect vas deferens to the urethra. So, you see in there in the part. So, there's a ejaculatory duct there. Okay. The next one is another important is the prostate gland. No, it is a gland producing alkaline secretions that account for 30% of the semen volume. Alkaline nature may help counteract otherwise the acidic environment of the urethra and vagina, making them more hospitable for sperm fluid passes through the series of ducts along the wall of urethra. And the urethra is the tube within the penis that carries the sperm and semen for the rest of the way to the opening of the penis. So here are some of the more male characteristics. So males are generally taller and greater proportion of body weight composed of water, no? Proportionately larger heart and lungs, presumably to handle greater blood fluid volume, exposure to greater levels of testosterone, resulting in heavier body and facial hair, but also increase the frequency and degree of baldness, and single X chromosome, resulting in sex-linked conditions such as color blindness and hemophilia. So, secondary sexual characteristics that emerge after puberty are males have no monthly cycle, no, unlike the females, and also the elongation of the vocal cord. So that's why under on the front of your neck, so this vocal cords or the Adam's apple, no, and it results to a lower voice. The next one is a broad shoulders and a deeper chest cavity. Okay, so one of the effects of this testosterone is that concerning about the testosterone, it is a male hormone, no, that produced mainly in the testes, but there are other glands called adrenal glands that also produces some testosterone. In case a man has lost his testes, these glands would continue to produce testosterone to support the male physical appearance. So, the testosterone is responsible for the growth and development of a boy during adolescence and for the development of sperm and secondary sexual characteristics. And also, here in the chart, for the skin, it's a hair growth and collagen growth, and also develops muscle growth, no? Increase in strength and increased endurance. And bones, testosterone produces a bone mass density maintenance, no? For the brain, excuse me, for the brain, the effects of testosterone could also increase the level of sex drive, improve the mood, confidence, and even memory function. And also in the bone marrow, so it causes for the a large amount of the red blood cell production, and most of all in the sex organs, it's a sperm production, erectile function, and also prostate growth. So humans experience various physical changes from childhood to adulthood. The adolescent stage is characterized by dynamic changes in the physical and behavioral traits. Despite differences in physical appearance, the sexual organs of men and women arise from the same structures and fulfill some similar functions. Each person has a pair of gonads, like ovaries are male gonads, testes are the male gonads. The gonads produce germ cells and sex hormones. So the female germ cells are the ova or the egg cell, and the male germ cells are what we call it as the sperm. So the ova and the sperm are the basic units of reproduction. Their union could lead to a creation of a new life. Okay, so that's all for our fourth lesson of the topic for gender and society. So once again, I'm Sean Xavier Alcalita. Thank you very much.